Welcome to Berwick Academy's 207th commencement. Thank you all for joining in this honoring of the class of 1998, and a special thanks to the governor who brought the good weather, at least part of it, south and left the bad weather in the north where it belongs. Please remain standing while Reverend Robert Howes of Kennebunkport offers the invocation.
Class of 1998, I salute you, and I want you to know that I am privileged to be part of this 207th commencement celebration. Let us pray. Holy One, you who inhabit eternity and wear as a garment the splendor of the living universe, create in us a common spirit that we may know our belonging in this community of learning. Give us such pleasure in this honored celebration that we will be nurtured by memories, bonded by friendships that endure beyond the years, endowed with a delight in learning and maturing, and filled with confident hope for the future. Grant us wisdom to carry with us into the many paths we follow the real life of this academy, that what we have known and loved here will be for us a touchstone and a guide. Now let the ancient blessing of your holy presence be among us as we claim our identity and rejoice in this commencement. Amen.
Please be seated. I know we are short a lot of chairs and help is on the way. I think they're getting things over to you as soon as they can. Don't worry about disturbing it because it's my speech and we can get through that all right. Governor King, Mr. Kozlowski, Ms. Donahue, Reverend Howes, friends, trustees and overseers, colleagues, and families. It is my honor to present the class of 1998. After last fall, some members of the class might worry that I will repeat my convocation masterpiece. Please know that I stand here today proudly to present and honor the class of 1998. 52 strong in the great and grand tradition of the 206 classes which have gone before it on the hilltop. I start my portrait of the class of 1998 by remembering the convocation speech of our student body president, Liz Nesher. I start not with her main idea of the road less traveled, but with her brief reference to last year's seniors. I quote, "They were disciplined scholars and athletes. They were poets and musicians. We watched them closely. We saw merit awards, high SATs, amazing GPAs. We watched as one after another they were accepted into top colleges." We might have inferred from Liz's speech that the class of 1998 was not going to match those accomplishments. And so I must start this portrait by stating for the record that Liz's words could just as easily be spoken by Christine next fall for the class of 1998. The accomplishments, the traditional accomplishments of this class will stand comparison with any class in Berwick's history. This class may not want to acknowledge its achievements. This class may not even want to be remembered for its achievements. Or typically, the class may not even think its accomplishments are all that important. But they are for you and for those who follow you. Disciplined scholars, amazing GPAs. The top 10 members of the class all had GPAs above 91. I don't know that that has ever happened at Berwick. Mr. Hawks nearly had to recalibrate the registrar's program to make it work. 10 members of the class, Mike, Gwen, Katrina, Sarah, Shannon, Brandon, Alex Roberts, Katie Rochelot, Alex Steigrad, and Lauren, 10 were inducted into the Cum Laude Society. I don't know that that has ever happened in the history of this school. 14 members of the class, Mike, Megan Goodwin, Jennifer, Sarah Jackson, Katie Jurovic, Shannon, Brandon, Jesse, Katie Rochelot, Dan, Alex Steigrad, Caitlin, Lexi, and Lauren, were inducted into one of the 3 language societies. And 3, Katrina, Gwen, and Alex Roberts, were inducted into 2 of the 3 language honor societies. High SATs. The class's average SATs approached 1,200, the second highest by only a couple of points in the school's history. Top colleges. Acknowledging a few April problems, just a few, the class of 1998 accumulated a college list that rivals any in the history of the school. The class also racked up a total of 743 laps on the senior run. That's 190 more than any class. By the way, if someone next to you just then inhaled deeply and seemed short of breath, then you know you're sitting next to one of the unfortunate challenge pledgers for the senior run. In the list of accomplishments, it may be that the class's greatest legacy is in the arts. Led by Arts Honor Society members Tiffany, Nate, Piera, Liz Nesher, and Kate Lally, and Music Honor Society members Brandon, Lauren, Mike, and Tom, the class of 1998 has enriched the artistic life on the hilltop. From West Side Story to the Factory Girls, from Senior Art Show to Brigadoon, from the mural in the faculty lounge to the Battle of the Bands, from the coffee houses to Winterfest, from Alpha to Omega, the class's artistic talents and achievements are already a part of the Academy's lore. So much for doubts about achievements. But is there more? There is so much more. In my convocation speech, I said that the class of 1998 would stand up and be counted. I spoke of the 60s and how the class's courage would have served so well in those troubled times. The class has the courage of its convictions. Liz said, "We will not be silent. We need to be heard." She spoke of the road less traveled. Who knows how the mind of a 50-year-old works, but somehow those ideas worked in my mind through the fall and winter, up to the time of Winterfest. That evening I watched, awestruck by the musical talents of the class of 1998. I wrote across the program, "The class speaks so many languages." And that is a portrait I proudly offer today. The class was not silent. The class spoke in many languages. The class stood up and was counted in many ways. The class of 1998 was heard. What Piera said with her paintbrush and her sense of color, Tor sang with his stunning voice in the healing game at the senior arts night. And Liz Hertz spoke with her stunning speed on the soccer and lacrosse fields, and Kate spoke with her guitar and not a pretty girl. And we heard. What Lexi played on her piano many mornings before assembly, and what she accomplished with her autistic child during senior projects. Matt echoed as our resident rebel, and Seth spoke as walk-on senior to help the JV basketball team lose its 5-year record of losses, and as tennis MVP and all-star with his big serve. And Dan expressed with his guitar at Winterfest with the Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute. And John said with his 3-point ICBMs and his abandoned drives in basketball and his honesty in conversation. And we heard. What Mike and Tom played and shared on cello and guitar, Sister Sadie and Honky Tonk, Steve created and shared and shared and shared of the new world of technology with all of us. And Jody danced in sold-out shows of a chorus line, and Molly shared with her positive spirit, and Mike combined on the basketball court and in the main all-state orchestra. And we heard. Rob improvised on the guitar, dominated with the lacrosse stick, and revealed the head of school's complete tone deafness. And Brandon sang tonight as Tony in West Side Story and led the math team and outran the head of school in the senior run. There is a theme to this. Liz Nesher played Chopin at Winterfest and led the student government, saying and doing, we will leave a clear message behind us. And Chris Battis sounded his drums in the jazz ensemble and the theme from Maxwell Smart and with Jeff and the Fez. And Anna spoke with her camera, and Chris Gibson excelled in the water as swim team captain. And we heard. Nate made us smile wearing a 3-foot sombrero singing La Cucaracha and wearing the famous coconut bikini in South Pacific. Scott led as hockey captain and goalie extraordinaire, and Patrick played 1 o'clock jump on his saxophone, and Ryan was strong with both his hockey and lacrosse sticks, and Rebecca ran the Berwick Red Cross blood drives year after year, and Troy saved goal after goal in game after game. And we heard. Shannon sang De Coloris and Looking for the Real Love of My Life, and she laughed, and we laughed. And Lauren scripted her original one-act play Circles and sang with her father last night. And Katie Phillips danced Cinderella's Dream, and Todd dominated with his wicked forehand drive as tennis MVP and produced his video documentary on homelessness, A Place to Go. And Jeff Finney spoke with the big bat in baseball, and Tom spoke again and again and again with his music, from Hit the Road Jack to Grown Accustomed to Her Face last night. And we heard. What Nate Hirsch spoke with his tennis racket at #1 doubles on campus and with his violin off campus, Connor echoed with his bat and his glove and his strong throw to second. And Caitlin said with her year abroad in Venezuela. And Megan Wenzel danced in Factory Girls. And Jess Miner said with her pens, and Alex Steigrad said with her pens in the Cornerstone. And we all heard. The class of 1998 also stood up to be counted in groups. Think of Brigadoon with Dan, Shannon, Megan Wenzel, Lauren, Nate, Liz, Patrick, Brandon, Jeff Allen, and Mike. There's a smile on my face for the whole human race. We heard and we smiled through both glorious nights. Think of girls' athletics 4 years ago and of girls' athletics today, standing up and being counted. The New England Class D co-championship in soccer last year and the near game in the semifinals in the Class C tournament this year. The near invitation to the NEPSAC basketball tournament and 2 amazing years in lacrosse. How long was that winning streak? With the end of season elevation to ASGA to a Class A matchup with Phillips Andover. Think of the 4-year reversal in women's athletics in all sports and all levels, and think of the MVPs and the captains and the honorable mentions of Sarah, Katie Jervik, Katrina, Gwen, Tori, Tiffany, Rebecca, Jen, Liz Hurt, Alex Steigrad, Molly, Whitney, and Alex Roberts. I actually prefer to remember the images. The double overtime soccer co-championship game called because of darkness, Tori playing and swimming through 3 seasons with a bone chip, Katrina invading the all-male EIL golf domain, Alex coming back from the horrendous knee injury, Sarah's humor and grace facing the Monica Seles of Dana Hall, Whitney's smothering defense, and Liz's incredible speed. What about standing up and starting something new? Perhaps a math team. Shannon, Brandon, Seth, and Mark captained the team this year to a 3rd-place finish in its class in Maine, and 21 other members of the class joined. Or perhaps, what about standing up and starting a rooting section for baseball? Let's call them the Bleacher Creatures. Jeff, Mac, Sean, Scott, and lawn chairs and a grill, and a whole lot of chatter. And we heard. What about standing together and producing the best cornerstone since the newspaper was founded? Alex, Todd, Caitlin, and Jess put pen to paper as editors, and we heard. Or what about standing up for toleration and respect, and then standing up again and again and again? Did the class of 1998 take the road less traveled? Was the class of 1998 heard? Are we better people for the hearing? Are we a better school for the hearing? Absolutely. or as Robert Frost and Liz said at convocation, that has made all the difference. So Governor King, Mr. Kozlowski, Ms. Donahue, Reverend Howes, trustees and overseers, colleagues, family, and friends, it's my honor to proudly present the class of 1998. Katrina Jackson came to the Hilltop in 1994 as a freshman. Her academic achievements include induction into the Cum Laude, the Latin Honor, and the French Honor Societies. Last night, Katrina received both the Biology and French Honor Awards. She is also a Bulldog athlete starring in golf, basketball, and lacrosse. Wherever she is and whatever she is doing, driving the lane for a layup, cutting in front of the net for a patented sky shot in lacrosse, hitting a sand shot from one bunker to the next during the head of school's photo day, or doing cartwheels anywhere, Katrina has brought enthusiasm and joy as well as excellence to the Academy. She will certainly take the same gifts to Boston College in the fall to their great benefit. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the salutatorian of the class of 1998, Katrina Jackson.
Governor King, Reverend Howes, Mr. Ridgway, distinguished faculty, fellow students, family, and friends, thank you for attending the graduation of the class of 1998. Your presence makes this exciting event all the more meaningful to us. This group of students has worked long and hard to reach this point, and now that we are here, we are not sure whether to smile or shed tears. For most of us, Berwick Academy has been a second home, a community in which we have found support, friendship, and excellent education. As we move on, many of us will seek similar communities, while others will opt for the change to larger ones. Yet, it goes without saying that each of us benefits from many aspects of Berwick Academy, whether it be the academics, art, or athletics. Here we have learned how to think, how to understand, how to learn. When I look back at my 4 years on the Hilltop, I am reminded of a sign that I saw once when walking on a deserted beach. The sign read, "Take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints." Though only a simple phrase, it is a clear illustration that only our footprints are left behind as we, the people who stroll along this beach, move on with our lives. Yet we have the opportunity to carry our memories with us in our perpetual forward motion. The photographs we take on the deserted beach represent our accomplishments, acquired knowledge, and memories from our days at Berwick Academy. For the photographs we have stored in our minds will travel with us wherever we happen to go. I have a permanent photograph in my memory of our class at Camp Winona freshman year, when I didn't know any of the faces around me and everything seemed so new. I have another photograph of our rafting trip junior year when my boat entered the turbulent rapids right side up and exited upside down, with most of us underneath it. Another of my photographs is of leaning over the narrow 5th-story balcony of the hotel where we stayed on Madame Clinton's French trip and making a new friend that night. Another photograph is of the superb artwork displayed in the senior art show exhibit. And after all of our childhood years of searching, who knew that Waldo could be found at the local Bolorama, and that he would be willing to pose for a photograph? And some pictures just cannot be described in words. I cannot write a sentence to describe the way that Gwen's smile sparkles, thanks to Dr. Hiltonen, or to describe the concentrated expression on Rob's face as he makes guitar playing look so easy. Nor could I describe the amusingly vacant look on Nate Hirsch's face when a teacher asks him where his blazer is, or how his cat Sushi could eat an entire English paper. I could not describe how beautifully Jody dances, or how sophisticated Caitlin and Megan are in their Spanish speaking, or why Whitney puts bleach in her french fries in order to make them glow. I could not write an essay to share with you Mike Bartner's laugh, Liz Hurt's devotion to her friends, or Alex Roberts' squeaky knee and shiny eyes. I cannot show you our laughter when we watch Nate Hall draw pictures of extremely odd creatures on the senior lounge whiteboard, and I cannot tell you how proud Piera and Shannon look when they are wearing their new clothing creations made of leopard print synthetic fur, chiffon, and the like. I could not describe how certain the spectators are that Troy will save the lacrosse ball, John will put the basketball in the net, and Tori will most definitely slide in the mud while performing some heroic athletic act. And I certainly could never tell you of how special my friends make me feel just by doing the small things that show they care. Every student in this class has a different yet equally significant collection of photographs which is tucked away in his or her mind. And the images of these photographs are ones that cannot be trapped by words. I will never let go of my photographs because I cherish them, and because they do not linger behind with our footprints, they will remain here in the classrooms, on the fields, and on the stage after we have gone. For now it is time for us to embark upon a journey into new and uncharted territories. From Australia to California to Canada we shall scatter, and we are carrying all of our photographs and vital pieces of knowledge in our minds so that we may overcome any obstacle, learn from any mistake, and live out any adventure we may choose to go on. In one of our long and drawn-out discussions about life, my best friend and brother in one told me that when it comes to succeeding in difficult trials, some people do, some people don't, and some people want to. I would agree, and also add that success is different for everyone. If you have found true happiness, then you have found success. I do verily believe that this class of 1998 is a class of doers, a class of talented individuals who will find their success. We are dancers and painters, actors and athletes, musicians, artists, and scholars, and we are friends. So now we are graduating and walking blindly away from each other. But don't forget your grassroots, because even though we will all be strewn about, we're really only 7 digits apart. We've shared some of the most wonderful times, and I, for one, will be willing to reminisce about any of them anytime. And maybe 20 or maybe 50 years down the road, the footprints we have left behind at this small school will be so faded that they are scarcely visible. But when we look back, because we always will, these footprints will be clear and distinct because we created and left them behind together.
Thank you, Katrina. We are happy and honored to welcome Governor Angus King to the Academy. It is fitting that the nation's only sitting independent governor should come to Berwick, a place which institutionally and philosophically takes independence very seriously. Rather than offer the normal and formal introduction for the governor, I will tell you that he preceded me by 2 years at Dartmouth. We never met, but he was a presence for this underclassman. He was a member of Paleopolis, the senior executive committee, student government. He was up and about. He was doing things. He was working for change, working for good, and being followed around by our little school newspaper, the Daily D. We came to Berwick a few years later or after that, and Angus King again became a presence, up and about, doing things, working for change, working for good, and being followed by a lot of newspapers and a lot larger newspapers. It was a familiar feeling. It was a good feeling. It is also ever so appropriate that the Academy's 207th class, which has its own strong record of standing up for what is right, for working for positive change, for being heard. It is my great pleasure to present the class of 1998's commencement speaker, the Governor of the State of Maine, Angus King.
I remember the president of Dartmouth once referred to the Daily D, which was our campus newspaper, as a flea on the dog of Dartmouth. I wouldn't, of course, comment about the press in that way. I'm just relaying that story. It's great to be here. We're hoping the weather's going to hold out. I have no control. My jurisdiction only goes up 100 feet. So I think I see a patch of blue that looks like it's about as big as the seat of a Dutchman's pants. That's the standard for whether it will clear up, and hopefully it will. I especially want to welcome our friends from New Hampshire. Welcome to Maine, the home of the moose, the lobster, and the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. I have to tell you a story on myself. Last summer, the last couple of summers, the Chief Justice of Maine, Dan Wathen, and I have led a spirited tour of Maine by Harley-Davidson. And last year we sort of did an east-west trip and followed the course of the Androscoggin River. And in the afternoon of the first day, we took a break beside the river. There was a little park, and a couple of motorcycles pulled in next to us with license tags from Massachusetts. And I did what I always do in those circumstances when I see out-of-state tags in Maine. I go up and greet the folks and be sure they're having a good time and tout the benefits of Maine. We had a nice chat, and at the end of the conversation, I put my hand out to the lady and said, "Welcome to Maine, I'm the governor." She looked at me rather oddly, and it was only then that I realized we were in New Hampshire. Now, she hadn't been to Maine and wasn't going to Maine. I tell you that story before Chief Justice Wathen does, because he enjoys telling you. I must say this business of being governor is a rather odd thing. It's for someone who had never run for public office before. It's rather startling. If anyone ever asked you what the best part of being governor is, I can tell you in a moment. The answer is the parking. The car you see is right there. I didn't have to walk very far, and that's always the case. It can go to your head, however. You have a state trooper with you all the time. People in the State House treat you with great deference and respect, other than the legislature, of course. And you know, when you are introduced to an audience, the people stand and applaud. You didn't, but that's okay. But I had been in office about 3 weeks and went to use the restroom on the second floor of the State House, and on my way out I washed my hands. There was one of those electric things that you push, you know, to dry your hands. Someone had written on it, "Press here for a message from the governor." See? The bad news was it was in the handwriting of the Speaker of the House. I hate that. Now, I want to address the graduates. This speech is to the graduates. The rest of you can talk among yourselves or listen if you choose. What I want to give you are 10 things that I wish someone had told me when I was 18. So this is not a typical speech with a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is a list. The nice part of that is, as I go through the list, you'll know exactly where we are. You'll know when we're approaching the end. I'm the only person standing between you and these diplomas. So here's my list. Number 1, take more chances. Take a risk. One of the best pieces of advice I had when I was about 25 years old was from a very old man, and he said this to me. He said, "When you get to be my age, you will regret things in your life. Be sure that you regret things that you have done rather than things you haven't done." Now, I don't mean when I say take a risk or take more chances that you should go out and try to ride a motorcycle after drinking a 6-pack of beer. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is open yourself up to the possibilities of life, including the possibilities of failure. Did you ever realize that there's a multi-million-dollar industry in this country based upon putting erasers on pencils? It's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. Ted Williams was the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, and he made an out 6 out of every 10 times that he went to the plate. If you don't fail every now and then, you're not stretching yourself. You're not trying hard enough. I think one of the greatest problems we have in our lives is that little person that sits on our shoulder and whispers in our ear, "You can't do that." Run for governor as an independent when only about 10% of the state's people have ever heard of you against a guy with 90% name recognition? What a dumb idea! It was a dumb idea. No, it was a good idea because I took the chance to fail. And the reason I made that decision, I can tell you in a nutshell. Because I was discussing it with my family, and I have a boy, Duncan, who now works in Washington, graduated from college just a couple of years ago, and we were debating whether to do it. It would be expensive, time-consuming, aggravating, difficult, probably destined to fail. And Duncan finally said, "Dad, you got to do it." I said, "How come?" He said, "Because in 20 years, if Maine in fact goes down the way you're afraid it will, and you didn't try, you'd never forgive yourself." And at that moment, I knew I had no choice. So take chances. Take a chance on failing. Number 2, learn to write an outline. If these folks haven't taught you to write an outline, sue them. It's the single most important academic skill you can acquire. It helps you to organize your thoughts. It'll help you on writing answers to exam questions. It'll help you to organize your speaking thoughts. Learn to write an outline. Number 3, listen to yourself. Quite often, at all ages, but particularly when you're young, you have a tendency to want to listen so much to other people. You want to be cool. You want to be accepted. And quite often, we do things as groups that we would never do as individuals. Listen to yourself. That little person, remember the one I said on your shoulder who says, "You can't do that." Sometimes that little person is telling you the right thing when it says, let's do what is right and good here. Listen to yourself. We all want to be liked, but in the long run, trust your own instincts. Number 4, don't look for geographic or material cures. And what I mean by that is, happiness is something that you carry around between your ears. And quite often people say, "Oh boy, if I could just get out of Maine, once I get to Phoenix, or Miami, or Dallas, or Paris, I'm going to be happy." Bunk. You're going to be happy where you are because of who you are, and getting someplace else isn't going to change it. The same thing goes with material things. "Oh man, if I just had a convertible, I'd be happy." I remember when I was in college, you probably remember, there was a thing called a KLH stereo. Remember that? That was the creme de la creme of sound systems at the time. I figured if I had one of those, I'd be happy. I saved up and got one. Lo and behold, the next morning I still got up and had to put my pants on one leg at a time and go to class. Happiness does not come from things. There are people all over the place who think, I'm going to buy a boat and that'll make me happy. I bought a boat. The 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day you buy it and the day you sell it. Now I know that there's a boat dealer in this audience. I'm going to get a letter. That was a joke. But the point I'm making is that material things and a change of geography is not what's going to make you happy. I'll share a quick story from my church in Brunswick, St. Paul's Church. I happened to have dinner about 10 years ago with 2 couples in the same week. The first dinner was with a fellow, I won't mention his name, and during the course of dinner he said, "Angus, we're going to leave St. Paul's Church." I said, "How come?" He said, "Because it's unfriendly, it's cold, nobody's welcomed us, we've been going here 3 or 4 years and people just haven't taken us in. We feel it's a very cold, unwelcoming place." And I said, "Gee, that's too bad. We'll miss you." 2 days later, we had dinner with another couple. This fellow was in the Navy, stationed at Bath Iron Works. He'd been in the church for about 9 months. He said, "Angus, you know what I love about St. Paul's Church?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "It's the friendliest, warmest, most welcoming place I've ever been." Why did those 2 guys have that different reaction to the same place? Because of what they were carrying around between their ears. Don't look for material or geographic cures. Number 5, I'm going to save you a lot of trouble right now. I'm going to save you a lifetime of aggravation. You ready? You ought to write this down. always round off the cents in your checkbook. Okay? If you write a check for $14.60, write in $15. I just saved you years of aggravation of trying to do subtraction of 4 digits. Now, somewhere in this audience, there's an accountant who is seething, saying, he can't say that, don't do it, you can't do it. I'm the governor, you can do it. Okay? Always round off the cents in your checkbook. Number 5, see, we're almost halfway done. Number 6. Now, before I give you this one, we've had a few light moments. I want to be a little more serious. I'll tell you a story. Where I come from in Virginia, I was born, I wanted to be born in Maine, but my mother was in Virginia that day. It was a big day for her, and I thought I should be there. But anyway, where I come from, we used to have revival meetings, and the preachers would come and put up a tent and have a revival meeting. The story is that the preacher came down, was having a revival meeting, an old lady came down out of the mountains to go. And the preacher stood up and said, you got to stop running around with them painted women. And the old lady said, amen, brother, amen. And the preacher said, you got to stop going to the horse track and betting all your money on them horses. The old lady said, amen, brother, amen. And he said, you got to stop sitting on your back porch gossiping and chewing tobacco. The old lady turned to the woman next to her and said, now he's done stopped preaching and started meddling. So I'm going to meddle a little right now. I want to meddle by saying, be honest even if it hurts. It's easy to obey the law if you stop at a red light and there's a cop on every corner. Be honest when it's going to cost you, because it will come back to you in 1,000 ways. If you ever stop and think about it, everything you have in your life can be taken away from you by somebody. Your money, your house, your family, your friends. There's one thing that nobody can take away from you, but that you and only you can give away, and that's your good name, your reputation. And once you give it away by being dishonest, it's real hard to get it back. Be honest even when it hurts. Take a deep breath and be honest. Number 7, treat each job as if it's the most important job you'll ever have. If this summer you have a job as a lifeguard or as a groundskeeper or something like that, you be the best lifeguard or groundskeeper or stock boy or whatever it is that they've ever seen. There are a lot of people who say, you know, I'll get through this, I'll punch my clock, but when I get to be vice president of this company, I'll really show them a thing or two. I'll get to be vice president, then I'll show them. You never get to be vice president unless you show them when you're a stock boy. You never know who you're going to be working for this summer that may turn into the crucial recommendation that's going to get you into graduate school. Also, you get the experience of applying yourself in every situation. Treat each job as if it's the most important you ever had. Number 8, always carry a $10 bill hidden somewhere on your person. When you get a little cash, take $10 out, fold it up, and bury it in your wallet or put it in your shoe or something like that. I guarantee that if you do that for the rest of the summer, at some point between now and Labor Day, you're going to say, thanks, Governor King, I needed that. Because you always get in a pinch. Now, when I make this talk to college groups, I say $20. I once gave it to a group of medical students, I said $100. But for you, $10, and it'll make a difference. It'll get you out of a jam at some point this summer. I always do it, and it's saved me about once a month. Okay, number 9. This is a real simple one. When in doubt, don't get married. Marriage is a wonderful thing. It's for life. If you have doubts, if it doesn't feel right, hold off for a while. Number 10. I lied. We have 12. You've been such a great audience, I wanted to give you a little more advice. Number 10, value your friends and never let them down. Go to Chicago when they get married. If somebody gets sick, find a way to go to see them. Because you'll have hard times in your life, and your family and your friends are going to be all you have. That's what's going to really be meaningful to you. And it's worth the extra effort to be there for them. And then they'll be there for you. Value your friends and your family and never let them down. Number 11, value each day and what life gives you. This is sort of like the geographic and material cure. A lot of people miss life by anticipating. You know, life is what happens while you're waiting for something else to come along. Value each day. Grab a hold of it. I had an experience when I was 29 years old. I had 2 kids under the age of 5, and I went to the doctors one night and was told that I had a particularly virulent and dangerous form of cancer. My chances as of that night were about 50-50 of living for another 2 years. That gets your attention, and it makes you think about things. And 2 of the things that came to me during that experience I've just shared with you. One is the importance of friends and family. When I woke up from surgery and saw a couple of close friends and my wife at the foot of the bed, that's something you can never imagine how important it is. But the second thing is, it makes you realize how important every day is. What a gift it is. What a gift it is. Enjoy life and share life every single day. My wife is Jewish, and there's an old Yiddish saying, and I have to learn how to say it in Yiddish. I haven't yet, but the rough translation is, there are no pockets in a shroud. A shroud is what you're buried in. There are no pockets in a shroud. You can't take it with you. Enjoy life and every day. Now, the final point. Don't ever believe that you can't make a difference. That one person can't make a difference. I'm going to tell you a story about the greatest citizen that Maine has ever produced, a guy named Joshua Chamberlain. Chamberlain's house, by the way, is right at the corner of my street that I live on in Brunswick, and as a governor, it's a wonderful experience to have to get up every morning and drive by Joshua Chamberlain's house on the way to work. It sort of reminds you of what the standard should be. Now, you all know the story of Joshua Chamberlain at Little Round Top, July 2nd, 1863. Chamberlain was given command of the last left point on the Union flank. The Union Army was lined up across the battlefield. The far left flank, there was nobody else there, was Chamberlain in the 20th Maine. He was told under any and all circumstances to hold that position. Why? Because there was nobody behind that line between Gettysburg and Washington. If the Confederate Army had turned that flank and gotten behind Chamberlain and the Federal Army, they could have marched to Washington, and most historians believe that would have been the end of the Civil War. And today we would be 2 or perhaps 4 or 5 different countries. Chamberlain had his men arrayed at the top of the hill. The Confederates from Texas and Alabama came up 3 times, and each time they were repulsed. The 4th time they prepared for a charge at the end of the day, and the 20th Maine had no ammunition. They did not know what to do. Chamberlain wasn't a soldier. He was a professor from Bowdoin College. He had read about a military maneuver where you line up your troops on the battlefield in a straight line, fix bayonets, and sweep across the field like a door closing on a pivot. That was what he called for. He didn't know what else to do. The 20th Maine fixed bayonets, charged down to the hill in the face of the Confederate charge. I'm sure they were terrified, yelling their heads off. The only people more scared were the Confederates. I think the good Lord had something to do with what happened that day. A lieutenant from Alabama rushed up to Chamberlain with his gun cocked, put the pistol in Chamberlain's face in the middle of the charge, pulled the trigger, and the gun misfired. And Chamberlain was saved, and the country was saved. Don't let anybody tell you that one person can't make a difference. Now, that's the story you know about Chamberlain. I'm not going to tell you that story. I'm going to tell you a story about Chamberlain you don't know. Almost 20 years later, in 1880, Maine had a gubernatorial election that was, it makes today's politics look like a Tea Party. We had armed camps in the state, actually fighting with one another. It was almost like a civil war within Maine, trying to decide who had won that election. In Augusta, there were armed groups in the city. There was a sharpshooter on the roof of the State House taking aim at people in Mr. Blaine's front yard next door. We can hardly conceive of anything like this. Nobody knew what to do. Chamberlain had been governor of Maine in the late 1860s, but he was long gone. He was back down at Bowdoin, president of Bowdoin College. Somebody said, "We're in a jam here, let's call for Chamberlain." They invited him to come up. He got on his horse in Brunswick, rode the 31 miles that I know very well between Brunswick and Augusta. And here's what he did, very interesting thing. He went into the State House by himself, kicked everybody out of the State House, locked all the doors, and said, "I'm staying in here until the Supreme Court of Maine decides who the rightful governor is. Nobody gets in, nobody gets to the governor's office, nobody gets to the council chambers or the indicia of power." That night, a mob surrounded the State House calling for Chamberlain's life. They were armed, they had torches. And finally, late at night, after dark, Chamberlain alone opened the front door of the State House and walked out to the top of the hill overlooking State Street. And when the tumult had died down, here's what Chamberlain said. "I am here to see that the laws of the state of Maine are fully and faithfully executed. If any man wants to kill me for it, here I stand." There was a pause. There was silence. And finally, there was a little old man at the back of the mob who had been with Chamberlain at Gettysburg. And the little old man piped up and said, "Aye, General, I was with you at Little Round Top. Any man that touches a hair on your head will have to answer to me." That was the end of the moment. The mob dispersed, dropped their arms, put their torches out, and went home. The case went to the Supreme Court and was decided in a lawful way. Chamberlain had saved the state. Think about that situation and ask yourself, can one person make a difference? Now, few of us, if any, will ever have the opportunity to do something as dramatic as Chamberlain. You're sitting there saying, well, you know, I'm not going to be in a great civil war. I'm not going to be in a situation such as what the governor described up in Augusta. You'll be in those situations every day, my friends. You'll be making decisions every day that have the capacity to make a huge difference in people's lives. Helping somebody who's disabled, looking out for a member of the class who maybe doesn't fit in so well, being kind to someone, making decisions in such a way as to calculate their impact on people's lives. We all have the power and the responsibility to make a difference every single day. I've listened with awe to the description of what you have accomplished. There's an old saying, those to whom much is given, much is expected. This class obviously has talent and ability, and you have a responsibility to give some of that back. I salute the class of 1998 for the work that you've done and for the work that you will do. It's an honor for me to be here and join you on this wonderful day. Class of 1998, well done and bon voyage. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor King. Mr. Kozlowski and members of the Academy's Board of Trustees, it is my pleasure to present on behalf of the faculty the members of the class of 1998 for their diplomas. Now, I've got one little parenthetical to stick in here. We are going to start with Jeff, and Jeff, you need to set the model here of coming up on looking the chairman of the board straight in the eye and shaking his hand so we get that good picture, right? This is a big responsibility. You could over there too. That'd be great. Okay. Number 1, Robert Jeffrey Allen. Tiffany Jean Arell. I need Claire Doheny here. Michael Doheny Bartner. Christopher William Battis. Scott R. Behan. Patrick M. Boyle. Robert P. Brady. Mr. and Mrs. Davey. Tori Elizabeth Davey. Tiara Louisa Gilardi. Christopher J. Gibson. Ryan M. Gilpatrick. Todd Goldenfarb. Megan Gabriella Goodwin. Jennifer Ann Gray. Anna Greenglass. Nathan S. Hall. Gwen Thompson Hiltonen. Nathan Michael Hirsch. Connor K. Hurley. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, damn. Thank you, Connor. Sorry. Elizabeth McKinney Hurt. Katrina L. Jackson. Mr. Jackson? No. Sorry, Katrina. Sarah Taylor Jackson. Catherine Ann Jervik. Shannon M. Kearns. Thomas M. Keller. Catherine Harmon Lally. Tor Christian Lonke. Brandon John McKenna. Jessica Mary Minor. Elizabeth Campbell Nesher. Jennifer. Rebecca Ann Olney. Troy Peters. Catherine Jeanette Phillips. Jeffrey Finney. Jody Grinnell Pimentel. Mr. and Mrs. Rio. Jonathan Rio. Alexandra M. Roberts. Catherine M. Rochelot. Molly Grant Rowland. Daniel O. Seward III. Stephen Sewell. Mrs. Silverblatt. Whitney Alana Silverblatt. Max Davis Sowerby. Alexandra J. Steigrad. Megan McLeod Wenzel. Caitlin May West. Seth Michael Wild. Alexandra C. Willick. Sean Patrick Williams. Lauren Williams Barnard. Matthew K. Witham. Mark Benjamin Zink. And by a special vote by the class of 1998, honorary member of the class, James Dean III.
Yeah, Mr. King!
It's a little bit mortifying, but I hope Whitney and Mr. Dean will get together quickly and exchange diplomas. Several years ago, the Academy established the Founders Medal. As we enter our third century, it is manifestly clear that the Academy's first founders did their work well. But it is also clear that the Academy needs new founders if Berwick is to remain and grow as a place of excellence. It is ever so appropriate that the man who has been behind of and in front of so much of the good of the Academy during the last decade, and who received the Founders Medal 2 years ago, should in turn present the Founders Medal to a woman who has been behind and in front of so much good for the last 6 decades. It is my great honor to present President of the Board of Trustees of Berwick Academy, L. Dennis Kozlowski.
Thank you, Hap. I have the privilege and honor of presenting Marie Donahue with the Founders Medal this afternoon. And to list the many and diverse ways in which Marie Donahue has contributed to Berwick would require a text nearly as long as her history at the Academy. I turn instead to one of Maria's favorite poems penned by Clarence Day. It speaks of books and the hearts of men, but Maria's love of it speaks much about her heart, about her love of books and the life of the mind, and her enduring legacy at the Academy. The poem, "The world of books is the most remarkable creation of man. Nothing else that he builds ever lasts. Monuments fall, nations perish, civilizations grow old and die out, and after an era of darkness, new races build others. But in the world of books are volumes that have seen this happen again and again, and yet live on. Still young, still as fresh as the day they were written, still telling men's hearts of the hearts of men, centuries dead." With this, it gives me great pleasure to award Maria A. Donahue the Founders Medal. Maria, the former proclamation on the medal reads, "Whereas she was graduated valedictorian of the class of 1937, whereas she taught English at the Academy from 1941 to 1947 and from 1980 to 1988, Whereas she served on the Board of Trustees between 1978 and 1980. Whereas she lovingly wrote the history of the Academy for the bicentennial. Whereas she has been, as a student, a teacher, a trustee, a friend, the guardian of the Academy's liberal arts message, the Board of Trustees of Berwick Academy on June 6, 1988, awards the Founders Medal to Maria A. Donahue.
Thank you very much. Judging from my appearance and my limping gait, you eager, enthusiastic graduates are probably thinking, wow, she must have been one of the founders. I don't go back quite that far, but my association with the Academy began in 1929 when I climbed Academy Hill for the first time to borrow books from the Fogg Memorial Library, which very generously allowed residents of South Berwick to use the library since we then had no library of our own. I then attended the Academy for 4 happy, full, exciting years, and after I graduated from college, began my teaching career here, my long teaching career, 46 years all told. Like James Hilton's Old Mr. Chips, in those years I have acquired thousands of children who have made me proud of their achievements, who have helped me develop understanding and fulfillment, and remain young in heart despite my years. I am deeply honored to receive the Founders Medal, and thank you, Dennis and Hap and the Board of Trustees for your faith in me.
The Cogswell Medal is awarded to the Academy's valedictorian. Brandon McKenna has been the ranking student in the class of 1998 since arriving at the Academy, and that is no mean feat. He was inducted in the Cum Laude and French Honor Societies. He received the Math and Physics Honor Awards last night. He was a founding member and led the math team. The fall will find Brandon at Harvard University. Let no one doubt Brandon is a world-class scholar, but also let no one doubt he is much more. Last night he received the Parson Thompson Award for community service. He has dazzled us, as he did last night with his piano. His dramatic talents were clear as Tony in West Side Story. It is fitting that Marie Donahue, the valedictorian of the class of 1937 and the guardian of Berwick's liberal arts tradition, is here today on the dais to greet a like-talented and like-spirited young man. It is my pleasure to present the Cogswell Medal winner and the valedictorian of the class of 1998, Brandon McKenna.
I get water. That was for Tiffany Arell and our awesome 9th grade math class and some quick pocket change. Okay, Governor King, Reverend Howes, Berwick Academy trustees, Mr. Ridgway, faculty and staff, family, friends, and fellow classmates, and the bagpipe player. In preparing this address, I was struggling to find a theme that would sum up the character of my classmates. I was given a few suggestions for my speech, however. Some of my classmates warned me not to write a speech full of quotations. They said not to talk forever, not to mention everyone in the class, and not to make them cry too much. Some said not to pull a Ms. Borden. Some said to be sure that I did. I was lost for ideas. Bartner took my idea last night when he removed his lucky shoes, so we won't be seeing my lucky pants gig. Much has been said in celebration of the diversity found in the class of '98. So what is the common thread? What theme could each member identify with and relate to? My inspiration finally came out of the blue, or more precisely, out of the mouth of Old Blue Eyes. With all the retrospectives on the life of Frank Sinatra since his recent passing, it is hard not to have heard his signature song, My Way, played recently. As I listened to the lyrics, they seemed to perfectly match the spirit of our class as we face graduation. I have taken the liberty of pluralizing them. And now the end is near, and so we face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. We've lived a life that's full. We've traveled each and every highway. But more, much more than this, we did it our way. At last, the thoughts began to flow, but then I suffered a twinge of apprehension. What if not everyone likes Frankie? What if some like his music, but perhaps not his style? What if some parents or faculty are disappointed that I am quoting not a noted philosopher, but a crooner? Then I caught myself. If there is one lesson that this class has learned, it's that you cannot please everyone all the time, so you have to follow your heart. Therefore, to properly represent this class, I went with my instincts and decided to go ahead and do it my way. I'm not done. Regrets, we've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. We did what we had to do and saw it through without exemption. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when we bit off more than we could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, we ate it up and spit it out. We faced it all and we stood tall and did it our way. By taking risks and doing things our way, we have made some mistakes, but how we have grown. Thank you to our parents, families, administration, and faculty who have allowed us to take chances. Thank you for inspiring us, challenging us, and nurturing our talents. It would seem that this school, so traditional by today's standards, would not have been a good fit for a class comprised of such strong-willed and innovative individualists. In fact, in retrospect, the pairing has been mutually beneficial. To earn these Berwick Academy diplomas, we are forced to adhere to a stringent academic curriculum that ensured that we receive a well-rounded education. This will only enhance any focused area of study we go on to pursue. For our part, the strong hands the class has taken vocally and actively in so many areas have energized the entire student body and focused attention for growth and revitalization, I knew I'd screw that up, that will benefit Berwick Academy long after we leave the hilltop. Our class is very musical and artistic, and we have highlighted the need for the Academy to invest more in these areas. The recent auction proceeds are a start, and Berwick is bound to increase funds in the years to come. On a more serious note, we've influenced individuals. Why, I saw proof of this last night when I followed Mr. Gilmore after baccalaureate out of the parking lot. He was going almost 5 times the campus speed limit. I attribute that to our class. This class took on busy schedules and contributed greatly to life at the Academy. The rigor of these last few days, consisting of the commencement practice, the senior run and cookout, the senior dinner, the prom, the following late night, early morning parties, baccalaureate night, and graduation today, and anyone lucky enough like me to take SATs, may have felt almost normal to a class so active and involved. We have grown in our individual pursuits, talents, and achievements, and while doing so, we have grown closer to one another. Though we are not always connected by interests, beliefs, and styles, we are joined at the heart. I am proud of the fierce loyalty and caring we have for each other. As we move on, I hope we can maintain these meaningful relationships. And, as the first class to graduate with the Academy wired to the internet, I extend to the class a challenge to keep in touch with the school and faculty, to continue to share and contribute our Academy in the years to come as each of us continues to discover and grow. It has been said that when Sinatra entered a room, all eyes were on him, despite whoever else was present. Such was the case when the class of '98 filed into assembly in the fall of 1994. We were great in number, bold, passionate, and sometimes outrageous. We were also inspired, spirited, committed, creative, and successful. And I believe as we leave here today, we will be remembered as having been sincere contributors to Berwick's legacy. And what is my message to you, to us, as we step off the safe and familiar hill of Berwick Academy to the world beyond? It is simply to always listen to the voice from within, for that is where your way will truly be found. For those humanity buffs yearning for a quotation by a noted philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote in his essay on self-reliance, "Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Absolve you to yourself, and you will have the suffrage of the world." With all due respect to Mr. Emerson, I will close with the final words of Frank Sinatra's song. And you have to forgive me, especially to the women's studies class. I tried to make the last stanza politically correct, but saying he and she, or she and he, so many times makes it a confusing tongue twister. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows we took the blows and did it our way. It's time to go now. I love you all.
Thank you, Brandon. And I think we've outlasted the weather. After our recessional, the class of 1998 will form a receiving line back here. We encourage you to use that opportunity to congratulate members of this remarkable class. You are also invited to a light buffet in the Commons. Thank you all for helping to honor and celebrate the class. Reverend Howes will deliver the benediction. Please remain seated during and after the benediction so that all can view the final march of the class of 1998. Reverend Howes.
The final word is the richest blessing we can bestow in this gathered community. Holy One, you have granted us such privilege and given us in such abundance skills for responsible and creative living. Accept now our commitment to honor our heritage and lift in loving hands the things of earth, that all that is sacred among us will be made visible and freely given for the well-being of this world, our home. Go now in peace, let your hearts be thankful, let your lives be full. cherish what this place has given you, and keep each day a time for celebration. For we are together the celebrators of this earth. Amen.